The International Film Festival of Kerala, or the IFFK, is no stranger to controversy. But this year, the debate has moved beyond cinema and into questions of governance and politics. At the center of the storm is the Kerala government's decision to go ahead and screen international films that were denied censor exemption by the Union Ministry of Information and Broadcasting. What the state government has framed as a bold stand for artistic freedom, critics say may actually be an attempt to cover up serious administrative lapses. Here's what happened. On December 11, just a day before the festival was set to begin, the Information and Broadcasting Ministry denied censor exemption to all 187 films selected for the festival. The reason cited was simple. Applications had not been submitted within the stipulated timeline. In the days that followed, the situation partially eased. The ministry cleared 150 films, then approved 18 more after the festival had already begun. That still left 19 films without permission when IFFK opened its doors. By December 16, 4 more films were cleared. But by then, the controversy had taken on a political life of its own. The Kerala government decided to push back. It accused the centre of imposing what it called a shadow ban and announced that all films would be screened regardless of clearance. Culture Minister Saji Cheriyan argued that Kerala would not allow its progressive cultural tradition to be undermined and directed the Chalachitra Academy to ensure that screenings continued as scheduled. Among the films initially denied exemption were some high-profile titles. These included Sergei Eisenstein's nearly century-old classic Battleship Potemkin, as well as multiple films dealing with Palestine, such as Palestine 36 and Once Upon a Time in Gaza. At the same time, the centre cleared an Israeli film that focused on Palestinian experiences, adding another layer to the debate. The controversy also drew international attention. The Palestinian ambassador to India wrote to the festival organizers appreciating IFFK for giving space to Palestinian stories, even as questions swirled around the clearance process. But while the state government framed the issue as ideological interference, several voices from within the film community pointed to something else. Procedure. Deepika Susheelan, a respected film curator and the former artistic director of IFFK, publicly criticized the handling of the situation. She argued that projecting procedural failures as political targeting distracted from the real problem: failure to follow established timelines and due process. According to her, the censor exemption process is never instantaneous. For a December festival, applications are ideally submitted by early November, allowing enough time for clarifications and follow-ups. In previous editions, the exemption order was typically in hand at least 2 weeks before the festival began. This time, the Chalachitra Academy sent its request for exemption only on December 3rd. Susheelan pointed out that earlier festival teams had dealt with similar challenges, including screening politically sensitive films, but had done so strategically and within the legal framework. She argued that lawful mechanisms to contest denial of exemption do exist, but they only work if applications are made well in advance. In this case, she said, there was no evidence that such routes were even attempted. She also warned that turning an administrative lapse into a public confrontation could have serious long-term consequences. According to her, this approach risks inviting stricter scrutiny and tighter controls in future editions, potentially making it harder for international filmmakers and guests to participate. The MEA was also drawn into the controversy. Academy Chairman Rasool Pukuti suggested that the centre had for the first time insisted on MEA clearance for certain films and guests. However, official sources countered this claim, stating that consultation with the MEA when foreign nationals are involved has always been standard practice across film festivals. Academy sources, on the other hand, argued that procedures around political clearance for foreign guests had changed this year. They said that earlier, guests could apply directly for visas, but now required political clearance first, a process that delayed final approvals until early December. They also pointed to the challenges involved in securing clearance for Iranian filmmaker Mohammad Rasulov, the jury chairperson who had fled Iran after being sentenced for making films critical of the regime. Still, critics noted that the academy itself acknowledged delays. In a letter to the INB ministry, the chairman admitted that local body elections in Kerala had pushed back festival planning and that programming work began later than usual. National Award-winning director Dr. Biju also raised uncomfortable questions, asking why films were scheduled without permission in the first place, given that the legal requirements are well known and routinely followed by festivals across India. For him, the key issue remained unresolved. Was the delay on the centre's part despite timely submission, or were applications made too late for the system to even respond? As the blame game continues, the LDF has formally backed the academy, passing a resolution calling the centre's actions an attack on freedom of expression. The festival has gone ahead, screenings have continued, and the political messaging has been loud and clear. But beneath the rhetoric lies a quieter and more troubling question. Was this really about censorship and ideology, or did an administrative failure spiral into a political showdown?